austerities and increase their worship. This is also the beginning of the 6 months when the sun goes in the southern hemisphere, Dakshinayana. And it's called Shayana Ekadashi because it's the day on which the Lord Vishnu takes a nap in the milk ocean atop Anantashesh. I was in Trivandrum in the famous Ananta Padmanabha Swami temple there in Tiruvananthapuram. And in that temple, there's a small Krishna temple also, smaller shrine for Krishna. And on the wall of that temple, there are these paintings that are characteristic of that part of the country. And one painting shows Balaram lying on the ground and Krishna lying on top of Balaram. And puzzled Mother Yashoda looking at both of them, trying to figure out what are they doing. The temple is a temple of Ananta Padmanabha Swami, in other words, Sheisha, Lord Vishnu who lies on Anantashesh. So today is the day when Vishnu goes to sleep, so they say. Here in Vrindavan, we have Sheisha temple. Actually, in Vrindavan itself, we have a couple of temples of Sheisha Vishnu. One of them is Ranganath Swami, big South Indian temple on the east side of Vrindavan. And there's another one I found just off the Parikrama mark from the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya. New temple also. So this is Deva Shayana Ekadashi, or Hari Shayana Ekadashi. And today we're going to discuss, in addition to this occasion, we're going to discuss Sanatana Goswami and his mission or his instructions that he's given. Of course, we know that Sanatana Goswami is the senior most of the 6 Goswamis. So we'll begin with Mangalacharana. Om Jnana Timarantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipuno Sadhanama Samsthapakao Lokanam Hitakarino Trune Manyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padada Vinda Bhajananandena Matadikao Vande Rupa Sanatana Odakuro Shri Jiva Gopalakao. Srinivasa Acharya has offered his obeisances to the 6 Goswamis, especially noting that they very carefully studied so much Shastra, so many Nana Shastra, all different Shastras, especially Rupa Goswami in his writings, and also Jiva Goswami, all of them. They're a very diverse body of literature they're quoting from and referring to. Our 6 Goswamis and also Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami and other Acharyas. They knew Kavya Shastra very well. They knew Vedanta very well. They could understand Sankhya and Yoga. They could understand Nyaya and Vaisheshika principles. They knew everything very, very well, very learned. And having gone through all these Shastras, they selected what is the essential thing that people really need to hear. Nana Shastra Vicharanaikinapanal. They were expert in finding that really pithy essence of the Shastras. Lokanam Hitakarino. And they wanted to do something for the benefit of the people in general. Lokanam Hitakarino. Tribhuvane Manyo Shavanyakaro. For this reason, they are worthy of taking shelter. In all the 3 worlds, you will not find anyone more sharanya or worthy of taking shelter than these 6 Goswamis, and that is why Narottam Das Thakur has said, Charya Vaishnava Keva Nistharat Paisya Keva. And similarly, he said, without approaching the topic of Radha Krishna in particular through the works of the six Goswamis, one was going to have a hard time. So these are the six Goswamis: Rup Sanatan Goswamis, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and Jeet Goswami. But today we're discussing Sanatan Goswami in particular. He's the eldest of the six Goswamis, the elder brother of Rup Goswami. We have within one family, Rup Goswami, we have Sanatan Goswami, then Rup Goswami, then Anupama, and then Jiva, four of them. Three brothers and a nephew. So Sanatan Goswami, the family history is that they were born in a family of Gauda Saraswat Brahmins who were Yajurvedis, originally from Karnataka, but settled for some generations in West Bengal. And after maybe 5-6 generations, we get these brothers, these three brothers, Rupa, Sanatan, and Anupam. Anupam died early, and Sanatan Goswami, he was born at the end of the 15th century. Some say he was born in Ramakeli, others say he was born in Naihati, and others yet say something different. Sometimes it's like that. Dates and places are kind of hard to fix in medieval Indian history. But Sanatan Goswami is considered to be the Acharya of Sambandha Gyan, because his deity, Madan Mohan, is the deity of Krishna Sambandha. Jayatam Sirtau Pangor Mamamandamater Gati Mat Sarvaswa Padam Hojau Radha Marana Mohana. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas are especially worshipping three deities: Madan Mohan, who is affecting one's development of Sambandha Gyan, and Govinda Deva, who is affecting one's practice or application of that Sambandha Gyan in the form of Bhakti Yoga. And then finally, Gopinath, he is bestowing upon us the prayojana, or the ultimate goal of these two processes, Sambandha and Abhideya. So the Acharyas who established these deities, they're also fixed as the Acharya of Sambandha, being Sanatana Goswami, the Acharya of Abhideya, being Rup Goswami, and the Acharya of Prayojan, being Raghunath Das Goswami. So according to opening comments in his Vaishnava Toshini commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sanatana Goswami says he studied under Vidyavachaspati of Navadvip. This Pandit Vidyavachaspati, he was considered to be the younger brother of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Vasudeva Sarvabhauma, great Navya Nayaka Pandit from Mithila. At least he was teaching in Mithila, and later on he moved to Jagannath Puri, and there in Jagannath Puri he came in contact with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, became a great devotee. So his brother was the first Sanskrit guru of Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana and Goswami and his brother Rupa, they were so brilliant in their studies and so competent in their activities that at that time, the ruler of Bengal, Alauddin Hussain Shah, he had his own sultanate there, independent sultanate in Bengal. He actually coerced both brothers to join into his government service. He didn't really give them a choice. He made them an offer they could not refuse, so to speak. And that government service entailed close association with so many Muslims, obviously. So they came to dress as Muslims, and Rup Goswami was given the title Dabir-e Khas, personal secretary of the king. And Sanatan had become the treasurer of the kingdom. He was called Sakar Malik. And they were extremely competent. Sanatan Goswami knew, I think, 7 languages. He knew the Arabi language. He knew Farsi language. He knew Urdu. Urdu didn't exist yet, but he knew that he had to have learned Braj Bhasha because he came and settled in Vrindavan, as well as his native tongue. Bengali and Sanskrit and other languages also. So we've said already, they're fabulously learned, and they were also fabulously wealthy because they had such responsible government positions they were taken care of. But they were not happy because they were in a compromised position. They had been they had been literally ostracized from GSB community. If you start associating with Muslims, and even they dressed like Muslims, and Sanatan, they had beards, and this is not going to go. So they were ostracized, and they were not very happy about that. And plus, they were devotees even from birth. This is shown by some of the things that, for example, Rupa Goswami wrote. Which one was it? Hansa Dutta, I think, and other books he wrote, even before he met Lord Chaitanya, they were pure Vaishnava works. So they were devotees from birth and very attached to the Srimad Bhagavatam. But by force of circumstances, they had become quasi-Muslims, virtual Muslims, maybe you can say. So around 1514, Common Era, they came in touch with Lord Chaitanya at Ramakeli. And that proved to be a life-changing meeting. After that meeting, both brothers decided to give up the world and join Lord Chaitanya's movement as renunciates. Rupa Goswami was fortunate in that he resigned and he was able to just go. So he went to Vrindavan. And Sanatan Goswami wanted to do the same thing, but he wasn't able because, everything comes down to money. So the king would not let him go. For Sanatan Goswami at that time, he pretended to be ill, but actually most of his time was spent reading Bhagavatam with so many pandits. And one of the king's men came to check on him and found this out. And so he was exposed. That the king was not so happy with that. But when Sanatan Goswami lay,
I think we got cut.
Yeah, looks like internet. Mukunda Datta Prabhu, we're not able to hear you.
Power outage.
Could be, yeah. There are a lot of power outages in Hyderabad last few days, heavy rains.
Mhm. Haribol, we can see your Hyderabad place. Haribol.
I'm in native place near Vijayawada,
Okay.
in my home.
Haribol.
I think Prabhu will join. I think Mukunda Datta Prabhu. Let's see. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Yeah, Prabhu sent a message. Power cut. I will be back momentarily. So you must be rejoining. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I think it's trying to join. Let's see. I'm hoping join a minute or so. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram. Okay, Mukunda Datta Prabhu, you're back. Looks like.
Sorry, this is just another cut. In life. Temple has thousands and thousands of rupees just to guarantee that they get their internet. So, all right. So where do we leave off? Yes, Sanatana Goswami, he wanted to go, but the king Alauddin Hussain Shah would not allow him to go because he had a plan to attack Odisha. And he asked Sanatana Goswami to assist him in that, but Sanatana Goswami refused. When he did that, then he was thrown in jail. He became a political prisoner, as we would say now. So while in prison, Sanatana Goswami received news that his brothers had both gone to Vrindavan. That is, Rupa and Anupam had gone to Vrindavan because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going there from Puri. So they wanted to meet him there. And that was too much for Sanatana to resist. So he decided to bribe his jailer and escape prison. That's a long story. It's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila chapter 20. But long story short, Sanatana went to Vrindavan, but on the way he had heard that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already started back towards Puri and that he was staying at that time in Kashi. So Sanatana Goswami decided to go to Kashi and he met the Lord there. And the Lord explained to him Sambandha Gyan. And actually, because he was looking like a disheveled Muslim at the time, nobody could even recognize him, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew that he was there. So he took Sanatana Goswami in and he had him cleaned up and he taught Sambandha Gyan to Sanatana Goswami. Those instructions, later on, they all proved very fruitful because Sanatana Goswami put them down into writing in a very cohesive and very systematic and scholarly manner. And those are his books that we all take advantage of, even to this day. He's known particularly for these 4 books. The first one is Brihad Bhagavatam. Brihad Bhagavatam is an original Sanskrit. You can say it's a story, but it's pointing out the theological truths of our Sampradaya about which form of the Lord is the supreme form to worship and the nature of the different devotees and their relationships with the Lord, from the more distant to the closest. He spells all that out indirectly in his Brihad Bhagavatam. That Brihad Bhagavatam has been translated along with its commentary. Sanatana Goswami himself wrote his own commentary on his own book, and that commentary is called Digdarshini Tika. My godbrother, the late Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu, has translated in both the text and the purport of Sanatana Goswami, and that's been published some 10 or so years ago, 15, 20 years ago by the BBT. Sanatana Goswami also wrote Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is another massive work. This 3 volumes in English, this Brihad Bhagavatam. And Hari Bhakti Vilas is also 16 different books that are put together in one big compendium of Vaishnava Smriti, tells the devotees how to act, how to behave, what is proper Vaishnava Sadachar and behavior. So that also has Sanatana Goswami's own Tika, which is again called Digdarshini Tika, commentary. Then there is Dashamacharita, which is better known maybe as Sri Krishna Leelastava. That has also been translated by Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu. and published by the BBT about 20 years back, but it's very difficult to get these two books, Brihad Bhagavatam and Dashama Charita. And then Vaishnava Toshini is a commentary by Sanatana Goswami on the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And these are all pretty big books, and they're all very important books, and they all embody the instructions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to Sanatana Goswami and expected Sanatana Goswami to pass on for the rest of us so that we could benefit from them. We know what does it mean to be a Vaishnava, what are the different classes of devotees, how do we act, how do we behave as devotees, how do we absorb our minds in Krishna Lila, what is the meaning of that Lila? All these things are described in Sanatana Goswami's books. And these are mentioned actually by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Antilila, chapter 4, texts 219 through 222, where he says, Sanatan Grantha Kaila Bhagavatamrite Bhakta Bhakti Krishna Tatta Jani Jahaya Haite. Sanatana Goswami compiled Brihad Bhagavatam. From this book, one can understand who is a devotee, what is the process of devotional service, and who is Krishna, the absolute truth. Siddhanta Sara Grantha Kailo Dashamatipani Krishna Lila Rasa Prema Jaha Haite Jani. Srila Sanatana Goswami wrote a commentary on the 10th canto known as Dashamatipani, from which we can understand the transcendental pastimes and ecstatic love of Lord Krishna. Hari Bhakti Vilas Grantha Kaila Vaishnavachar Vaishnavera Kartavya Jaha Paiye Par. He also compiled the Hari Bhakti Vilas, from which we can understand the standard behavior of a devotee and the full extent of a Vaishnava's duty. Now, Srila Prabhupada, this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, he's written his commentary on this verse. He says, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes, Hari Bhakti Vilas, which was originally compiled by Srila Sanatana Goswami, later Gopal Bhatta Goswami produced a shortened version of it and added the Digdarshini Tika. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, there are so many quotations from the Sattvata scriptures that sometimes it is inquired how the atheistic smartas can refuse to accept them and instead imagine some other opinions. What is recorded in the Hari Bhakti Vilas strictly follows the Vedic scriptures and is certainly pure. But the attitude of the karmis is always one of giving up the conclusion of pure Vaishnava understanding. Because the karmis are very much attached to the world and material activities, they always try to establish atheistic principles that oppose the understanding of the Vaishnavas. And finally, text 222, he says, Arajata Grantha Kaila Tahake Pariganan Madana Gopala Govindera Seva Prakasham. Srila Sanatana Goswami also compiled many other books. Who can enumerate them? The basic principle of all these books is to show how to love Madan Mohan and Govindaji. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Bhakti Ratnakara refers to the following books by Srila Sanatana Goswami. 1, Brihad Bhagavatamrita. 2, Hari Bhakti Vilas and the commentary known as Digdarshini. 3, the Lilastava and and 4, the commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam known as Vaishnava Toshini. Sanatana Goswami compiled many, many books, all of them with the aim of describing how to serve the principal deities of Vrindavan, Govinda and Madana Gopal. Later, other deities were gradually established and the importance of Vrindavan increased. So, these books were written on the basis of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions to Sanatana at Prayag. Just prior to this, Rupa Goswami had met the Lord at Prayag, and he had been instructed there for 10 days. Sanatana Goswami received these instructions at Kashi. Rupa Goswami was instructed at Prayag for 10 days. And Rupa wanted to accompany the Lord to Kashi, but instead Mahaprabhu sent him to Vrindavan. And likewise, Sanatana Goswami wanted to accompany Lord Chaitanya back to Puri, but the Lord also sent him to Vrindavan, at least first. That's stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Majjhalila, chapter 1, text 31. So there are some things that we can note about Sanatana Goswami's high character, and in particular, his profound humility. We find one example of this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lila, chapter 1, text 63. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes, to avoid turmoil, three great personalities, Haridas Thakur, Srila Rupa Goswami, and Srila Sanatana Goswami, did not enter the temple of Jagannath, end quote. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is still the practice at the Jagannath temple not to allow those to enter, but who do not strictly follow the Vedic culture known as Hinduism. Srila Haridas Thakur, Srila Rupa Goswami, and Srila Sanatana Goswami had previous intimate connections with Muslims. Haridas Thakur had been born in a Muslim family, and Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, having given up their social status in Hindu society, had been appointed ministers in the Muslim government. They had even changed their names to Dabiri Khas and Sakar Malik. Thus, they had supposedly been expelled from the Brahmin society. Consequently, out of humility, they did not enter the temple of Jagannath. Although the personality of Godhead, Jagannath, in his form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, personally came to see them every day. Similarly, the members of the Krishna Consciousness Society are sometimes refused entrance into some of the temples of India. We should not feel sorry about this as long as we engage in chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Krishna himself associates with devotees who are chanting his holy name, and there's no need to be unhappy over not being able to enter a certain temple. Such dogmatic prohibitions were not approved by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Those who were thought unfit to enter the Jagannath temple were daily visited by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this indicates that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not approve of prohibitions. To avoid unnecessary turmoil, however, these great personalities would not enter the Jagannath temple. So that was his humility. We also see that in Vrindavan, when Sanatana Goswami finally settled in Vrindavan after going to visit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Puri, he went back to Vrindavan. And he stayed at a place near Mansi Ganga called Chakratirtha. And this Chakratirtha, it was created when Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill. At that time, there was thunderous rain sent by Indra. And Krishna sent his Sudarshan Chakra to dry up all the rain after 7 days. And that Chakra decided to stay in Vrindavan and asked for a place to stay. And Krishna said, okay, you can stay here next to Manasi Ganga. So that place is called Chakratirtha. And Sanatana Goswami had his Bhajanakuti there, just near Manasi Ganga, next to Mahadev temple, also called Chakreshwar Mahadev. And daily Sanatana Goswami used to take the external parikrama of Govardhan, which is about 24 miles. Every day he did this, even when he was old. And he was offering obeisances along the way to as many Vaishnavas as he saw. And when he became old, it became very difficult for him to continue this parikrama. And so one day, Krishna himself actually came to Sanatana Goswami and told him that, you don't need to take so much trouble because you're old now. You can just, you don't have to do so much this vrat. And Sanatana Goswami wasn't happy with that. He said, no, I actually have to perform this vrata. So Krishna went up to the top of Govardhan Hill. He stepped on one Shila and played his flute. And in ecstasy, that Shila melted immediately and left a big footprint in this large Govardhan Shila, which Krishna then brought down and handed to Sanatana Goswami and said, now you can do parikrama of this Govardhan Shila, it will be this same thing. And because Krishna himself had given him this Shila, Sanatana Goswami was happy there. He kept that Shila with him in his Bhajan Kutir, but now it's kept in the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. You can see it if you ask the Pujari. So Chakreshwar Mahadev, in those days when Sanatana Goswami was performing his bhajan, he was bothered by so many mosquitoes. And so he decided to leave that place. But when Mahadev found out about this, he decided he had to do something. So he came in the form of an old Brahmin and asked Sanatana Goswami, what was the problem? Sanatana Goswami explained. And then the Brahmin said, don't worry, from now on, there won't be any mosquitoes here. And they say that even now, near Chakreshwar Mahadev, there's no mosquitoes that will bother you there, near Mansi Ganga. So all these things are described in the Bhakti Radhakar, Sanatana Goswami's very strict bhajan. Probably it was Sanatana Goswami that Srinivasa Acharya had in mind when he said, Dhira dhira jana priyao priyakarao nirmat sarao pujitao. That whether the Goswamis were all non-envious and they were dear to both the sober and the not intoxicated people, they were always doing good to others and they were always very highly respected. That pretty much encapsulates the character of Sanatana Goswami. No discussion of Sanatana Goswami would be complete, though.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, we lost you again. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Wow. So let's give a minute or two if he comes back. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Okay, Prabhu is back.
Sorry, this is unpredictable nature of Vrindavan life. So Sanatana Goswami, he was performing bhajan like this in Mansi Ganga. For some time he was there. He also was offering his obeisances to so many devotees in the day. So he was greatly respected and he was always concerned about the Brijavasis and taking care of them and asking how are their families and their children. And whenever he was there, everyone would become enlivened. He was extremely popular among the native population in Brajatam. So we also want to mention Sanatana Goswami and his Ishtadeva, Madan Mohan Thakur. That deity is now worshipped in Karauli, Rajasthan, but also still in Vrindavan. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila chapter 1 text 15 says, Jayatam Surtau Pangor Mamamandamater Gati Mat Sarvasva Balam Pojao Radha Madana Mohanao. Glory to the all-merciful Radha and Madana Mohan. I'm lame and ill-advised, and yet they're my directors, and their lotus feet are everything to me. So when Krishna was performing his transcendental pastimes here in Braj 5,000 years ago, after he had wrestled and danced with the Kaliya serpent, that was an 8-hour thing. It took all day, and he was in the water the whole time. So he was quite cold after that pastime. And so the sun god knew this, and the sun god immediately increased his shining 12 times the normal amount, just to dry off Krishna and warm him up. And when he did that, then Krishna actually began to sweat from the intense heat. That's why the hill where the current Madan Mohan temple in Vrindavan is built is called Dwadash Aditya, hill, 12 suns. And the ghat at the foot of that hill is called Praskandhan Ghat, because Praskandhan means perspiration. So shortly after Krishna's disappearance, Vajranabha thought that he wanted to build temples all over the whole Brajadham, wherever Krishna had his significant pastimes performed. And so he did that. And with the help of the only surviving member of the dynasty who had actually seen Krishna, Uttara Devi, he made these three, especially these first three deities, Madan Mohan, Govinda, Gopinath. It said that Madan Mohan is looking like Krishna from the feet into the waist, and Gopinath is looking like Krishna from the waist until the head, and Govinda is looking like Krishna's face, exactly, according to Uttara. So these deities were installed in Vrindavan, but after so many thousands of years passing, they had somehow become lost again. That happens. And finally, Advaita Acharya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's expansion, Mahavishnu, and Sadashiva, some say, that he came to Vrindavan and he renovated the worship of Madan Gopal. In those days, he was known as Madan Gopal. So he worshipped near the present day, Dwadashaditya Tila in Vrindavan. But when he left Brajadham and went back to Mayapur, Advaita Acharya entrusted the worship of this Madan Gopal deity to his disciple, Purushottam Chaubey, who was a householder living in Mathura at that time. So this Chaubey family took the deity there to Mathura with them. And then a generation later, when Sanatana Goswami came to Vrindavan on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order, naturally the first thing he was doing was looking around for all the lost places of Krishna's pastimes, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had given this instruction to both Rupa and Sanatan, that he should not only write books about bhakti, but he should also reestablish these Leela studies all over Vrijadham and compile a Vaishnava Smriti and these things. 4 instructions he was given like this. So when Sanatana Goswami came to Vrindavan, he went and visited this Chaubey family. He said that he had a dream one night, and Madan Gopal came to him in this dream and said, I'm staying with his family. Why don't you come here and beg your alms tomorrow in Mathura? So Sanatana Goswami did that. When he got there, he saw that the Chaubey family, they were ordinary, simple people, Brijavasis. So even the children were playing with the Madan Gopal deity. And Madan Gopal was acting as if he was one of the children. He was running around in the yard and playing with them. And the Chaubey's wife, when she was cooking khichdi for the children, she was brushing her teeth at the same time with dantakashta stick. And then she would stick it in the pot of khichdi and stir the khichdi with that. And then she would make an offering. And Sanatana Goswami saw this kind of behavior, and he was astonished. He just thought, you're Chaturvedi Brahmin. You're not supposed to be acting like this. People will never understand. So he was advising the Brahmin that you should, try to follow strictly according to the Shastra, because when we're aspiring devotees, and even when we're perfect devotees, actually, as long as we're in this world, we always have to try to live according to the Shastric standards. There are conventions of Shishtachara, Sadachara, Vaishnava, etiquette. And so Sanatana Goswami was advising this Chaubey couple that you have to do like that. So then he went back to Vrindavan, and in his dream that night, the deity of Madan Gopal came and said, look, this man, I've been staying with this family for so long, and they've been worshiping in this mode, and that's very nice, but actually you're right. Actually, the standard should be set in an exemplary way so that people in the world can learn how to actually worship Krishna properly. So I think that you should take me now, and you should set that example yourself, because you're going to write this Vaishnava Smriti. So you're the proper person to set the example. And so please come tomorrow and I will come back with you to Vrindavan. He gave this instruction to Sanatana Goswami in a dream that night. The same night, the same Madan Gopal went to this Chobe Brahmin and he told him, look, I'm so happy with the way that you've been worshiping me, but actually you should give me to Sanatana Goswami. He will take me to Vrindavan because I want him to show the world how to properly practice deity worship. So Sanatana Goswami came the next day to Mathura, and as soon as he saw this Chobe Brahmin, he offered his obeisances and he apologized for his offenses, and he requested that this deity, I need to take the deity now, it's the deity's order. And so the Chobe gave him this Brahmin, the Brahmin gave him this deity, Madan Gopal. And he came back and Sanatana Goswami established the deity on top of Dwadashaditya Tila. Because at that time, Sanatana Goswami was just himself living in a hut and he had nothing really to offer the deity even. Just a little leaf covering as a roof for the deity. Deity is actually being kept in a tree. And sometimes that happens here in Vrindavan. So really he had no opulence at all. Even when he was offering bhoga, he was just taking some atta, rolling it into a ball and throwing it into the fire. The Rajasthani people know what this is called bhatti, but usually they eat very nicely, opulent with ghee and everything. This is just simple thing. And Sanatana Goswami was not even putting salt on it. He was just offering like that because as a sannyasi, he didn't require anything. And Madan Gopal came to Sanatana Goswami and said, look, can you at least give me a little salt? This is pretty austere diet. And Sanatana Goswami said, but you've instructed me that I have to write this Vaishnava Smriti. And you said that anything that I could do for you, you would accept. So this is what I can do for you. Because if I give you salt today, then tomorrow you're going to want rasgulla and you're going to want puris and so many things. How am I going to write these books if I have to do all these things? You have to make your own arrangement. So Madan Gopal decided that he would make his own arrangement. And the arrangement was that within a few days, one Krishnadas Kapoor was coming from Punjab in a boat on the Yamuna. The boat was filled with salt. And he was going to Agra to sell all of his salt, but his boat got stuck on a sandbar in the Yamuna. And he came and offered his obeisances to Sanatana Goswami and asked for the sage's blessings that, my material life can be auspicious and I can be freed from this problem. So Sanatana Goswami pointed out that Madan Gopal is right here. You ask him, he will help you. And Krishnadas Kapoor came and surrendered to Madan Gopal. And he prayed to Madan Gopal that you please help me. And Madan Gopal did so. And the man's boat was released from the Yamuna, and he went to Agra and he sold his salt and he made a huge profit. When he came back, he gave all that profit to Madan Gopal in the care of Sanatana Goswami. And with that money, Sanatana Goswami built the present-day temple of Madan Mohan. Not exactly the present-day temple, but the temple previous to the present temple was built by the money of this Krishnadas Kapoor. So that it said that was the first temple of the 7 Goswami temples in Vrindavan. That was the first one, Madan Mohan. From that point on, he was called Madan Mohan. And he was worshipped here in Vrindavan for many, many years. This Sanatana Goswami also, he established this worship of Madan Mohan. And many of the local people actually became very attached. One of them was a devotee named Surdas Madan Mohan, who was a Braj poet. And he came and he was worshiping Madan Gopal by singing every day. He was doing what they call Rag Seva in the temple of Madan Gopal. And he was writing so many beautiful Braj songs, which are still there. And there are many pastimes that the Lord performed also with him. One time, he was previously tax collector near Lucknow, Sandila. And one time he had a dream that the Lord wanted him to give him so much gur. So he packed up this bullock cart full of gourd, and he sent it to Vrindavan. Because in those days, Lucknow, they were getting very nice first-class jaggery or gourd. So this cart full of gourd arrived in Vrindavan, and the Pujari in a dream, Madan Gopal came and woke up the Pujari in a dream and said, look, there's a big bullock cart full of gourd. You have to go and receive this cart. And then you also want you to wake up all the other pujaris, have them bathe, and come back and prepare a big feast of malpua. This is maybe 1 or 2 in the morning, and Madan Gopal is asking this priest to prepare a big feast with all this gourd, which has come in a bullock cart. And so they did that. In this way, Sanatana Goswami's deity was receiving worship. Then finally, Surdas Madan Mohan, he decided he would leave his government post and he would just surrender and his life to Madan Gopal and do service in the temple there at Madan Mohan. So he was collecting taxes that year, and he collected maybe 13 lakhs in the 16th century. 13 lakhs was a lot of money. And he should have sent that money into the government of Akbar Shah at Fatehpur Sikri. And that was the system. They would send in a sealed chest and put it with an armed escort, and it would go to Agra. This time, he gave them a sealed chest, but he didn't tell them that the chest was full of rocks, because he took all that money and he went to Vrindavan and he fed so many sadhus with all that money. Anything they wanted, he would buy it for them. New silk chadar, brand new deities. He would give them so many bhogas and sweets and so many things. He just blew it all, the whole district tax collection for that year. And when the soldiers arrived in Agra and when they took this tax money into the treasury, they opened up the box and they saw that it's full of stones. But there's a note on top, and the note on top says, this year in Sandila, we collected 13 lakhs, and Surdas Madan Mohan spent the whole thing on the sadhus and took off in the middle of the night. So Akbar was a little bit favorable to Hindus, and so he was, of course, he had a close relationship with his tax collector anyway, he trusted person. So he wasn't exactly angry, but he was amazed that Surdas Madan Mohan would be have such himmat. So anyway, so he went and arrested Surdas Madan Mohan and asked him, what have you done here? And so Surdas Madan Mohan explained that I can't tolerate this government service anymore. I'm sorry, but I have to resign. And you can punish me any way you want, but my intention is to come to Vrindavan. So Akbar gave him a pension and sent him to Vrindavan. So very happy to retire and spent the rest of his life there. He also has his Samadhi Mandir just outside the temple in the front corner. So Sanatana Goswami was worshiping in this way. Later on, the deity came to Jaipur, and from Jaipur, he was taken to Karoli with a princess who could not bear his separation. And now the deity is being worshipped in Karoli, Rajasthan. So this is Sanatana Goswami's deity worship. Another one of the things that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had wanted he and his brother Rup Goswami to do here in Vrindavan is establish deities, as Vrajanabha had done 5,000 years before. So they did that, actually. The modern day Vrindavan is really the creation of the 6 Goswamis, and through their efforts, it became established as a tirtha, and particularly Krishna's places, Krishna's pastimes. So Sanatana Goswami finally left this world sometime at the end of the 16th century, around maybe 1558, mid 16th century. And his Samadhi Mandir is also just behind the Madan Mohan temple in Vrindavan. You can still go there today and offer his respects. So I think we're out of time now, but if anybody has any questions or any comments on anything that we've discussed so far.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you very much for covering wonderfully. Dear devotees, if anyone has questions, please raise your hand or put in chat. looks like no one has. I heard a few thoughts and maybe, some questions also. Maybe you can elaborate about the Ramakeli, Gupta Vrindavan. You can elaborate, and also Hari Bhakti Vilas specifically, because some confusions are there. So many directions, instructions given. About on Ekadashi, you can't eat, you can do this, or on Chaturmas. So, based on Srila Prabhupada's instruction, what we should take and how we should follow. So we can elaborate those, and also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given so much elaborate descriptions. We don't see that in specifically on those aspects of that 3 different types of incarnations at that level. What Mahaprabhu told, we don't see in other books specifically. So you can elaborate in much more details. 4 chapters of instructions. I was amazed to see. No other place you find those many instructions from the Lord. You can elaborate some more reflections.
Hari Bhakti Vilas?
No, that one I'm talking about, the Madhya Leela chapter 20 all the way till 23 and 20, see Swayam Prakash, the Lekatma, and the elaborate description, chapters after chapter.
Yes. That's really, I mean, the same thing is summarized in teachings of Lord Chaitanya, because Srila Prabhupada, around 1968, 69, 70, the same time that he summarized the content of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he also summarized the content of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he also summarized the content of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So the content of those 3 books represents really what Srila Prabhupada considered to be the really essential instructions given in these 3 great books that he was afraid he wouldn't be able to finish. And in fact, he didn't finish, except for the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Prabhupada just gave the summary study only. And teachings of Lord Chaitanya is a nice companion, we can say, to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And of course, Bhagavatam also, Srila Prabhupada didn't finish the 10th canto. He only got into the 14th chapter. So we're very fortunate that we have Krishna book. But in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the instructions that are given not only to Sanatana Goswami, but Rupa Goswami as well, that's a major part of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which means that this is really the important thing that we have to learn from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he gave all that to Sanatana Goswami in a matter of a few weeks, maybe. Rupa Goswami he gave in 10 days. So we're very fortunate, not only that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has written all of that up in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but that Srila Prabhupada has summarized it so nicely in teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So, if we can study those books at least in concert with the Chaitanya Charitamrita, then we get a better sense of what is the meaning. I didn't really hear that you have a specific question.
Hari Bhakti Vilas, can you comment on that?
Hari Bhakti Vilas, there's a nice purport there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita also, which I somehow can't locate right now, but Srila Prabhupada is mentioning there that it encapsulates the essence of the Vaishnava Smriti, but he also introduces the conception that some part of the Hari Bhakti Vilas has been interpolated maybe by Smarta principles. So it's kind of equivocal, the purport that Prabhupada gives on this. And I'm sorry, I don't even have the exact reference right now, although I had planned to include it in today's presentation. But you can just look up Hari Bhakti Vilas in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and you should find what Prabhupada says about it. But that's what I recall from his purport, that Hari Bhakti Vilas it is a bona fide Vaishnava Smriti, but at the same time, we don't need to worry too much about following all the little rules and regulations. Prabhupada in general was not so big on that, although he he became so in his later years. He became much more oriented towards Vaidhi Bhakti, which of course revolves around Smriti injunctions. So, his desire to standardize deity worship throughout ISKCON represents that general tendency that he displayed in his later years. And his increasing emphasis on Vaidhi practices of bhakti rather than Raganuga bhakti also represents the same tendency. And his introduction throughout ISKCON of standard, liturgical practices, morning program, really. And even his instructions to apply the principles of Varnashram Dharma. He gave about 80% of his instructions on that topic in the last 3 years. That too represents his increasing emphasis on Vaidhi Bhakti, which means Smriti. I don't want to say Smarta because it's different. It's Vaishnava character. And the Hari Bhakti Vilas is dealing with that. In addition to so many principles, as you mentioned, of deity worship in particular, that's also there. But you have to understand that a Smriti is very comprehensive. A comprehensive Vaishnava Smriti actually governs your every waking moment of every day. And, a lot of times we're not ready for that kind of authority. We're not ready to surrender our conceptions of independence that much that, we rebel against that sort of thing and find any excuse to do so. But it's there, Hari Bhakti Vilas, and more so, I think, is Gopal Bhatta Goswami's Sat Kriyasar Deepika, because that book deals specifically with the samskars that should be practiced by the devotees, Vaishnavas.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, yes, Prabhu. Wonderful, a significant point you had made. Satish Pandita Prabhu, you had a question? Or anyone else had questions? Comments? You can unmute and ask questions or put in the chat if you're not able to unmute.
अगर और प्रश्न न हो तो वो ठीक रहेगा, because I just came from another class. I'm 2 hours speaking.
Sure, Prabhu.
If anybody has any, please do ask. Let me see if any hands are raised. Maybe not. In which case, thank you all for your patience, listening, and forgive me. All glories to the Prabhupada, Vanshakalapada, Krishna. Jaya. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Mukunda Dutta Prabhu. Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Quick announcement. We joined for Bodha Yatra, return Rath Yatra today evening at our ISKCON of Central New Jersey. And today is Shayana Ekadashi, so it's even more prominent, more auspicious to attend. And Parna time has been posted. So that is, I think, 6:35 to 11 o'clock or so. That is tomorrow's Parna. 13th Wednesday is the Sri Sanatana Goswami Thirubhavatidhi, Vyasdev's appearance day also. So very important day, 13th Wednesday. And Chaturmas is starting on the same day, Wednesday, because it's Purnima. First day fasting from sak, especially green leafy vegetables, especially spinach. The next upcoming festivals are 3 dates. We should try to mark it. Starting from August Balram Jayanti, August 12th, Friday. Then you have August 19th is Sri Krishna Janmashtami. Then I think September 4th, I think Sunday is Radhashtami. So, and August Prabhupada's appearance day is also, that is on Saturday, which is August 20th, I believe. Yeah, August 20th Saturday is Srila Prabhupada's appearance day. Very, very important days. Please try to be here. Invite others. Please help us in various services. Govindas is on, specials, Radhayatra specials, Puri specials. So please order it online, govindasnj.com. Or if you like to be added to Govinda's WhatsApp groups, please contact us. Any other announcement, Madhubas Prabhu?
Yeah, first of all, the Pana time tomorrow is 5:35 to 10:33, based of timings here. And today's Ekadashi, so with some festivities, we'll have Ekadashi pizza and sabudana vada starting from 3 p.m. 3 to 7 p.m. Govindas will be on today on Ekadashi. The Bhagavad Yatra will start. The program in the evening is going to start sharp at 4:30 p.m. Yeah. Yeah, nothing much. Thank you very much.
Session.
What time today the Tulsi Maharani Aarti and Prabhupada Aarti?
Tulsi Maharani Aarti and Prabhupada Aarti is 5 to 5:15 is Tulsi Maharani Aarti, and 5:15 to 5:30 is Guru Puja.
Okay. So the today 5 o'clock Tulsi Maharani Aarti. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Vanchakalpatarubhayascha kripa sindhubhayavacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnavinda ki jai.
Gopal ki jai. Thank you all.